I've always wanted to go and finally talk about this one because this one is interesting and it's before the whole slasher boom of, 1980 or Friday the 13th. It's before Halloween by 2 years. And it's only 2 years after Bob Clark's Black Christmas, which in itself is only a few years, 3 years, 4 years after Mario Bava's Twitch of the Death Nerve, aka Bay of Blood. So it's a fairly early slasher film, and it's very effective because the look of the killer here. When I first saw Valentine, the 2001 Valentine's Day slasher, I really enjoy that movie too. I saw it with Sean. We both rewatched it on a watch party together a while back. But the mask that killer wears is like that cherub kind of almost baby looking face. I always kind of thought when I first saw that movie, I wondered if they got that inspiration for the mask from this movie because it's such a creepy mask in this, and the fact that it's not even completely like it's translucent. You could see through it very faintly, so you can't like see whose identity it is. But because then you have the cool, chilling looking makeup and blush and stuff on her face, on the face of the mask, and the lipstick. I love the whole look of that mask. And then you have the raincoat, the yellow raincoat over that the killer wears, and has the hood over it, so you only see the hood, and then the mask is in the middle of it, like no skin at all. I love that entire look. Like, what a cool look for the killer. And another thing I enjoy a lot about this movie is it's kind of like what they could have done in Child's Play if they went down another angle in that movie. What do I mean by this? In the first Child's Play, when it's Chucky the whole time, like the cop, Mike, tries to, hint and throw out there that maybe Andy, it was responsible for killing his babysitter. But we know, because we're, as the audience, through the POV, we see that it's Chucky, and we also see it on the shoes, the powder or whatever that he was walking on the table. So we know that it's not Andy from the very beginning. This movie, when you first see this, it's very excellently handled. How they really make you go back and forth in thinking that it might be Alice in this movie. Alice, this young lady, like, she might be the killer, and it's so effective. It's so well done and her performance is great. Like, it's a little. I don't want to say it's like anything besides maybe dated, but that's just maybe just the movie and the dialogue and stuff. But she gives a great performance, and she can be very like kid-like, and then she could be very mature and cunning and manipulative. And they really play both sides of that so well in this. Like, that you'll be thinking, I think it might be Alice. This girl is insane and stuff. Like, look at all these things she's doing. And then on the other side, say, yeah, but that's kind of like, is that the type of movie it is, or is there a mystery? Like, is it not her? Is it somebody else? And I love the fact that what is it, Miss what's her name? Miss Tardini or Miss Tardoni? I'll get it in a sec. But is a small woman. So like it's not it's close in height and like body type, which is something some series I know doesn't give a shit about whether it's a small ass girl under there or a tall man or anything like that. It's always the same height to kill her. But I digress. I love how they did it that way too. And I constantly, the first time I saw this movie, I was going back and forth thinking like, it's Alice. It's just, that's the type of movie it is. It's just a movie about this crazy girl. But then you start thinking, but obviously she's in a costume. She's in disguise. So you start thinking, all right, can this be anybody else? And I think the motive is very cool in this movie. Another thing that's great about this is and I can see it being a reason why it was maybe more effective to the people who saw it, who back in '76, is the whole religious angle to this movie. Like, there's a lot of religion in here. And just like I said in my Exorcist video, and I say in general about The Exorcist, is that I think it was a lot more effective back then in '73, and for maybe another 10 years or so after that, 15 maybe, is that people were much more religious back then. And they've never seen a movie like The Exorcist before, because there was no movie like The Exorcist before. And it really freaked people out a lot more, and like on a emotional level, a experience level, a movie level, and also on a beliefs like level. And it really affected people. Nowadays, you hear it a lot. You hear younger people in the younger generation say, like, oh, well, I don't find it that scary. Like, I don't find, like, what's so, like, the most scary movie ever made? Like, no. Like, you hear that all the time. And it's because nowadays, whether you like it or not thankfully for me, people are a lot less religious. And you see a lot more atheists, agnostics, and just people who believe that organized religion is bullshit. And no offense against anyone's beliefs, everybody's absolutely entitled to what they want to believe in. But I feel like that's another thing that helps this movie, is that it has that same type of feel, like almost like a religious exploitation film, like slasher film. Slash like giallo a little. Like, it has a little bit of a giallo feel to it also. And I forget who directed it, but I don't know anything else that he's done by name, but I do know that I'm definitely going to check it out, because I want to see if he has done anything that I might have seen or might have heard of. But let's dive deep more into 1976's Alice, Sweet Alice. I love the opening, like right as soon as the movie starts, and I also love that there's not a goddamn ad. Come on, Amazon Prime, awesome. But I love that it goes right into the movie, and it starts with who I'm assuming is Alice, because I'll mention a little bit why in a few minutes. But you hear her repeating the Hail Mary prayer over and over again, really like a whisper almost, and like very low, and just it sounds very ominous, just because I guess it's a horror movie and stuff, so it warps how you hear it. But I love that. And then you just get the title card, just Alice, Sweet Alice, with the blood dripping. Like, such a short, sweet, effective opening scene that really kind of sets the tone a little bit for this movie. Now, this movie obviously has the distinction of being the first feature film that Brooke Shields was in. She plays Alice's younger sister. I forget her name, but I'm pretty sure this was her first feature. It was definitely her first feature film. I don't know if she might have done commercials or something before that, but she's only in it for the first 15 minutes or so, because, as we all know, she dies like very, very early on. So it's just cool to have that legacy, I guess, have for this movie, being the first not starring, but first feature film role for the Brooke Shields. That's definitely something. And we have Brooke Shields, who I'm just going to refer to her as until I remember the name, and Alice, or live with their mother, and I think like her mom's friend or something. It's been a bit since I've seen this, and they have their friend Tom come over, and we get the scene, the shot right here that I like on of Alice looking. I almost forgot her name. It's the name of the goddamn movie. Alice is looking at like the Mother Mary statue, and like then touches it. That's why I'm pretty sure that it's her at the beginning of the movie, like saying the prayer, because it makes sense that that's the prayer she's saying, and she seems to have something with. She's drawn to that painting of Mother Mary. Yeah, so Mrs. Stradoni, that's her name, and she's like their maid slash like basically slave. I mean, come on, like she does fucking everything for these people, and Karen is Brooke Shields' character, so they're both going to be having their first communion, and they're leading up to that. And Tom is the father who's going to be like doing the ceremony, and I just like everything about Alice's performance, also including the fact that they didn't try to just. I don't know, it's so hard to describe. Like, she puts on, like, it's not a great performance, like, acting wise. It is, like, very just kind of bland a bit, but that's all, like, her character needs. It adds to the creepiness. Like, it adds to you questioning whether it's this kid that's killing these people or not. So I think they did a very good job with casting as well, with this young actress here at the time. And then she ends up wearing that mask without the raincoat and scares Mrs. Tredoni, and she gets pissed off. She said, "Oh, stop it! You're supposed to be at dinner," and they end up having dinner together. Well, all of them except for Miss Tredoni, because she's treated like a goddamn slave. See, I told you. I think they also do a very good job of making them feel like a family. Like, we have the mother hearing Karen scream for her, and she runs down and she says that she's gonna break it, like she's gonna break my doll, like, and like if you can, and when they argue another time in this movie near before she dies, it's very well done. Like, you believe these performances. Like, you believe that these are siblings. Like, these are sisters. Like, and the same with the mom. When, like, in all the scenes with her, and briefly with Karen, but also like throughout the movie with her and Alice is very believable too. Like, they do a very good job with that. And Alice like really loves this mask because she's wearing it now. And then I love this scene when she takes the mask off, when she like jumps out at Karen. She takes off the cherub looking mask, and she has another mask of like an old man underneath. That's fucked up. Don't do that to your sister. I mean, scare her, yeah. Me and my parents used to go to Blockbuster like every single weekend, like Friday and Sunday night. Sunday night for movies for the week, and Friday night for movies for the weekend. And we would always, all three of us, pick up the boxes of the VHS covers of Child's Play 2, and Child's Play 3. My sister was so scared of Chucky. She had to be like 4 years old, 5 years old, and we would run around the store chasing her while she's running in terror from us shoving the VHS boxes in her face from all directions, trying to outsmart her. Like, she's 4, so of course you can fucking outsmart her every time. Oh, it's so funny. Like, so yeah, I can totally relate to her scaring her sister. But don't scare her and then the mask off and have a double scare with like an even creepier old man mask underneath. Like, fuck you, Alice. That's not nice. Oh yeah, and then we have this despicable fucking pervert, child molester or whatever, who lives in the same apartment complex. This fat motherfucker who just looks like a dirty guy who's just chain smokes and has all these cats, and not all those are the negative things. Like, I'm just describing him, but the negative things is he's a fucking child molester, and it is a disturbing scene later in the movie that I'm sure you guys know, when he starts hitting on her and like almost like, and I forget how like close to the line it gets, because that's one thing with this movie is that, as with a lot of 70s movies, not the majority, as we had so many like splatter films and like ultra gory films in the 70s, but like a lot of more obscure than the norm, but not obscure enough, I guess is a good way to put it. Because I know a decent amount of, especially if you're a slasher fan, but I know a lot of horror fans who know Alice Sweet Alice, but they might not know, something a little more obscure than that. So it's definitely been seen by a lot of people, especially nowadays. But there's not a lot of blood in this movie at all. Like there's no gore, like nothing like that, and it's perfect without it. Like doesn't need any of it. It's just as effective, if not more so, without any of that. I don't remember exactly how much we see. There might be like a little bit of blood when they take the, like when someone gets stabbed, but like that's it. Like, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't need it, because I love the story of this movie. Like I love the script, and that is what I always say is the most important thing in a movie is your script. If you don't have a good story, then everything else doesn't matter how good you do. Like, and that's what I think differentiates a B movie, like that's a real bad movie, all the way to Z movies that are the worst of the worst, like Birdemic, and separates that from the movies that are B movies, but we love them. I think that's what separates it. And this movie definitely like hits all the marks for me, just as it is. Like nothing had to be changed. But if you have a great script that I like, then everything else, acting and the way it's shot and cinematography and directing and everything else, is so much more on top of that. It's extra bonuses left and right. So just loving the story here is great. And Brooke Shields' death, man, it's very shocking. Like this is inside a church during a communion ceremony for the rest of these kids, and you see the killer in the mask and everything come up behind Karen and just start strangling her to death. And it's really gruesome, like just how it is. Like it's a strangulation death, but man, it's effective. Like it really makes you feel for this poor young girl, and they set it up brilliantly with Alice, not Alice's mom and her. I keep forgetting if it's a friend or her sister. I'll figure out, but she asks where Alice is, and she says, "I don't know. I didn't see her when she was outside." So it already sets up that Alice is missing, quote unquote, to those, her family. And then we see Karen get killed by the killer. And then we see her getting dragged into like the it's like a pew, like the inside the pew, or a trunk or something, and then she sets her on fire, like, and then the whole church, like, no, one of the nuns notice all the smoke coming out of it, and she like alerts whoever's in charge or whatever, and they end up coming, and everybody races out of the church because it's on fire. Like, oh, can you imagine, like, just running with the whole back and forth they play in this movie of whether Alice is the killer or not. As the mother, could you imagine thinking that your daughter, your older daughter, your firstborn child, might possibly have strangled your younger daughter in church, dragged her to a pew box, and set her on fire? Oh God! Like, and you wonder why I was saying earlier that why this movie was so effective, like when it came out. Yeah, this is why. Like you've never seen shit like this before. Like this is absolute taboo, some taboo stuff for back then, and I applaud this movie for going the places it goes. Bear with me here, because I passed out after the Birdemic stream earlier tonight, and then I started doing this. So still waking up. Oh, I'm like 90% awake, 10% asleep, but their friend or sister or whatever is Karen, the mom. It's not Brooke Shields' character's name. Her name was Alexandra or something like that. I already forgot, but it was not Karen. Like, so my bad on that. Oh wait, no. She said it just said on the subtitles that Karen's dead, or she's saying she's dead. This is so confusing. We're gonna figure this out together, guys. Karen's dead. All right, so never mind about any of this. Yeah, that was some stupid shit. Oh God, we got Mr. T here again, man. I kicked you off last time. I'm not dealing with you this time. Don't make me mad. Don't make you mad. All right, seriously, if you don't get the hell out of here, I'm gonna really. Okay, all right. Somebody, please hang up on him. Okay, I know who you are. Okay, goodbye. Jesus, this fucking guy. 2 episodes in a row now. I can't get away from Mr. T. All right, so then they have obviously the very emotional wake for Karen. For Karen. All right, good. He's gone. Yeah. So, I mean, how devastating can you get? Like, yeah, it's such a sad, depressing scene, man. But it really works because then you just want it. You want to know who the killer is. Like, you really care at this point. Like I said, the family is very believable, and they seem just like a nice religious family. And you want to know who fucking did this to this poor little girl. And I think that's a really good decision by the writers here of just putting this in here of making it that much more heinous of a crime, like burning the body and stuff, then having the wake and having to see everybody that's there and just devastated over this poor girl's death, that it's gonna right there make you think, all right, who the fuck did this? Like, who's that evil? And then you really start looking out for clues. I think that's so excellently handled. Like, really good job by them. So I really love Karen and Alice's father in this. Like, he obviously is notified that Karen was murdered, and they have the whole family together, and they're all discussing everything. And he says, like, I have some things I want to talk about. Tell the kids to leave, and no one, I guess, in the building knows that this fucking guy is like a borderline pedophile, or definitely is, but a molester or something. And they ask the kids to bring down the cake, like a cake to him. And I mean, you could see how you start to see Alice act weirder and weirder. Like, she starts taking the icing off the top of it with her finger and licking and sucking on her finger. Like, it's like she's trying to turn him on. Like, she's very rebellious. So you could definitely see the possibility of her being the killer in this movie throughout. But I think that she, in the end, I mean, the ending is something we'll definitely discuss, but in the end, I think that she's just a rebellious teenager. That she's just, like, how old is Alice in this? I'm pretty sure she's like 12 years old, so preteen. But she's rebelling. Like, she's against authority, which that would include, her religious figures in her life, her parents. So she wants to like figure out the world for herself. Like you guys had to know how we all get when we hit a certain age, usually around preteens stuff, that we just start to question authority and all that. So she's just a mischievous kid, and it definitely helps though the way that they wrote her character. Like I said, to make you keep going on the seesaw back and forth of, is this all right? This kid is definitely messed up, but is she capable of multiple murder? And it's so excellently done. So now we see, and I love this whole scene of the father's talk with the detective, and he's saying he has questions, like for sure, and starts asking about the veil because during the struggle, when she was getting like choked from behind, Karen's veil dropped to the floor, and Alice found it, and he's asking her, the father, like, how did he know it was How did she know it was Karen's veil? He wants to talk to Alice and interrogate her, and how did she know it was Karen's veil? And he says he didn't say it was Karen's veil. Everyone just assumed that, and maybe she possibly could have saw something that she doesn't know anything about when she walked in, and wants to ask all these questions to Alice. But he gives like the cold shoulder to the idea. I love the scene with Karen is dead. I almost forgot that's not her name. Where Alice, I'm going to be confusing these names now, and she's the goddamn titular character, I already said. She breaks something in the kitchen when she's like fighting with her mom. It's like a glass or something like that, and I love how manipulative she is at the beginning when she starts saying, like, don't hit me, don't hit me. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to hit you. Like, when have I ever hit you? And like but she says it just for, Catherine to hear. Like, I think that's like, dude, fucking evil. That shows how mischievous she is. Like, she's trying to make it sound like she didn't do anything wrong and that her mom is going to friggin' hit her for it. Like, that's real sneaky there. It's also really cool and adds to the whole mystery that I believe Karen also, but definitely Alice, have the same yellow raincoat. So when you see the killer and it's using Alice's mask and Alice's raincoat, it really even adds more to the whole. It might be this kid Alice who's killed her sister and is going nuts here. I love that detail too. That it's actually Alice's like clothing, her raincoat and her mask that we already see that she likes using and wearing. And yeah, then Alice goes down. Her mom asks her to go downstairs to the pedophile. He's actually the landowner and stuff, and they pay him the rent. And again, like nobody has ever known anything creepy about this guy. Like nobody. Like I'm sure he's acted creepy towards her before. And that's probably why she did the whole little licking her finger when she dipped her finger in the ice cream, the cream, or what's the word I'm looking for? Icing off the top of the cake. Cake would be great right now. Some type of sweet. I have no sweets, but that's nothing to do with anything. So she's definitely had some weird shit done to her before. And when she goes down here, he grabs her arm, and then she like offers up the cash to him, and then he says, "You're not in a rush, are you?" And he takes her hair and like moves it backwards. He's playing with her hair. It's so fucking disturbing. It's so creepy. Like these are the people that you want to see murdered, like instantaneously. I can't stand this. This is like the pedophile cook in Sleepaway Camp. Like, and I think I said all the way back then, because that was an early franchise I covered. and there was a few other movies like before and right after it that I was like, what is with all the pedophiles in the horror movies in the late 70s, early 80s? Like, there really are a lot of them. It's like, did I not get a memo? Not get a postcard? Like, like nothing. Like, it's so funny. But we have another one here in this movie for some reason, and we got to see this disgusting shit. Now, back again for another episode to bring us the weather, which only applies here in New York, but he's bringing it anyway. Meet Wad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force from Adult Swim.
Hello there, how you doing there, JT?
I'm good, Meatwad. What's going on with the weather?
Well, right now, presently, it is about 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and we got a little bit like a crescent moon.
Oh, we got a crescent moon. That's very nice. That's got to be beautiful if you're out there looking at it.
Well, I'll be out there looking at it, but I ain't got no legs.
That's true. You don't have legs. But you bounce around. I've seen it on the show.
That's true. I have been bouncing around, but I'm just lazy. I'm really lazy.
Okay, you're lazy. Yeah, we all get lazy time to time. But, alright, Meatwad, thanks so much for that weather update. It is 45 degrees out or so here, and it is cold. So I definitely don't want to be out there. Stay warm, Meatwad. Well, actually, say cold, Meatwad, because then you won't go bad over time.
Yeah, what are you saying that I'm bad?
Don't worry, joke went over your head.
Alright, bye-bye.
Okay, buddy. So there's actually more. It's a little more bloody than I remember this movie from my last time I saw this. Like I said, it's been a while. I love this scene though. The way that it's shot, the way that it's edited, it's brilliant looking. Like, it might be one of my favorite scenes in the movie. But we see the killer hiding like behind the corner in the apartment complex, and then Annie goes down the stairs, and she's coming down the stairs, and she goes, Alice, because she sees the killer dressed in her raincoat and her mask, and she stabs her in the foot, and it gets kind of bloody, and then you hear her screaming, and you hear Catherine from upstairs run down, and the pedophile guy runs out too, and it's a chaotic scene, and man, it's really creepy. Like, it really is a great little just contained scene of great filmmaking right there. Like, it's suspenseful, it's tense, it's really disturbing. Like, when you start thinking that it's possibly Alice. And then we see Dominic, the father of Alice, looking around, and we see Karen. See, I still told you it's gonna be fucking flip-flopping on the name. Alice is in the closet, and she's holding up the doll that she took earlier from Karen, and Karen was saying like she's gonna break it and all that, and she holds it up saying like, no, I just took it, I was just playing, like, here, Karen, you can have it, Karen, like pretending like she's talking to Karen. Now, knowing what we know, that she's not the killer, why is she pretending this? Now, I always thought maybe it's just her acting out. Acting out in grief of losing her sister. Like, she did love her sister, but she is, like I said, very anti-everything. Like a very crazy teenager, or preteen, whatever she is. So, I think it's another thing that adds more to the mystery here, because you really start to wonder, like, all right, she's hiding in the closet and acting like this to make it seem like she wasn't just killing or trying to kill and stabbing in the foot Annie. But at the same time, if she's not the killer, then why put on this act? Like, it does a lot of cool questions it makes you ask. Like, a lot of movies can make you ask a lot of questions, but a lot of the times they can be stupid as shit questions. Like, these are ones that are actually fun to think about for me. It's a great scene when Catherine goes in to see Annie at the hospital, and she's saying, like, what are you saying? Like, that Alice did this to you. And like talk to me, and like if you do this and keep this up, like, I'll never speak to you again. And the Annie, the actress playing her, I forget what her name is. I don't even think I've seen her in many things, but she does a great job in this, and she just like you could see her tearing up because she doesn't want to lose her relationship with Catherine, but she knows in her mind, she knows what happened. She's wrong, but in her mind, Alice attacked her and tried to kill her, and that's just great acting in that scene. And just more of her great performance, like when her husband gets there after getting the phone call, then he comes in and asks what happened, and she starts crying hysterically and saying, "Oh, well, it was terrible." Like she kept stabbing and stabbing. I mean, he's asking who, and then you see Catherine there and say, like, "Annie, don't, like, please don't." And like, just there's a lot of tension in that room, and then she just shouts out, "It, Alice! It was Alice! It was Alice!" Like, and then Catherine screams out, "Liar!" Like, what a great scene. Like, again, the performances are so good in this. So, another great scene right after this is we have the lie detector scene. And the parents bring Alice in to have a lie detector test. And he just starts asking her yes or no questions and says, like, "Do you know who stabbed your aunt?" She says, "No." He says, "Did you stab your aunt?" She said, "No." And it's like back and forth with all these questions, and it's really making you wonder if she's putting on an act or not. And then she says at the end, like she like says no again when he repeats the question, like, "Who stabbed your aunt?" And then he repeats it again, "Who stabbed your aunt?" And she breaks down and says, like, "It was Karen. I said it was Karen, but no one believes me." So this movie even tries going down like the possible supernatural angle that it's possibly Karen who is dead, and it even shows up on the lie detector test. On the results that she wasn't lying when she was saying it was Karen. So you get a little bit of everything in this movie. That's why this is such a classic, this movie. And like every other character is a pedophile in this movie because then the parents leave and Alice stays, and they say that he'll drop Alice off in a little bit, and he starts saying to the other cop that like some like vulgar like sexual type statement about Alice, and then the other one says like, "Tell me about it when I was putting the machine like the wires around her, like I thought that she was going to try to feel me up or something." Like it's something weird. Like every male character in this movie, man, except the father, is fucking a fucking creep. Yeah, man. Like Miss Tredini, I could see her going on a killing spree, just having to like I said, like be the slave to the father here. Like just hearing his nested asking, she only has two hands, she can't do everything he's asking for. I can see her losing her mind and killing a bunch of fuckers, but a kid, that's awful. So then Dominic, father, and Father Tom, are talking, and they're saying that they're going to get a list of everyone who's purchased that exact same raincoat to try to track down, if they know anybody on the list, to try to track down who the killer is. And he ends up saying to Father Tom that, like, Alice said she saw Karen behind the mask. So maybe it was Angela, which is Father Tom's daughter. It's like, man, you got balls to be accusing him that his daughter could possibly have tried attacking her. Like, he even says to him, he says, you're doing to me what you're saying Annie's doing to Alice. And then it kind of shuts him up. But damn, brutal. So I love when the parents go to see, now they have Alice like in this psychiatry center or something like that, or some type of like mental hospital, basically, like on watch and like assessment. And the nun there ends up saying, and she's a psychiatrist. Is she a nun? She looked like a nun. Who knows? But she's a psychiatrist. And she ended up saying that don't, always rush to just bring her back home. That she definitely needs help. Like, she has psychological issues. And her mom's debating it. She's like, no. She's like, yeah, she does, but she's not a murderer. And then she twists it around on her real quick, the psychiatrist. She's like, what does she say about her menstruation? She said just sort of that, how come she lied to you or didn't tell you that she started menstruating? And then says sometimes you don't know your children as much as you think you do. Like, damn, man. Like, fuck, it's throwing hardballs here. I love the scene, and it's a heartbreaking scene, like, especially as a parent. Like, when her mom goes and talks to Alice, and she's doesn't even want to be bothered with anything. She's saying, just leave me alone. Why can't everybody just leave me alone? And she's trying to play up, her whole, I'm a rebellious teenager, and I don't care about anything. And then her mom says that she's going to be back tomorrow, and she starts walking away. And then Alice just, I think part of her, you can look at it in two ways. One, that she's putting on an act. But why, though? Again, if she's putting on an act, it's just for our sake as the audience. Because it's just to trick us more into thinking that it's her as the killer, and that she's trying to keep making up lies as she's going. She just has issues. So I think that it's just that's breaking through that whole resilienceness, if that's a word. If not, now it is, of like all the trying to be a tough teenager and I'm home grown up now, to her real, like, her childness coming through and crying and saying, and saying mom, and like running towards her and crying and saying don't leave, and like I like, and like them embracing and them crying together. That's a great scene. That's really well handled and very well acted. So also there's like this little teeny side plot with Dom, because his Alice's parents are divorced for seemingly a decent amount of a few years at least. He's remarried, and he gets a phone call from his wife, and there's a whole little debate between the two of them. It's an awkward phone call, like, first of all, like, and her asking, do you love me? Do you love me? And then he has to say, like, yes, I love you, like, in front of his ex-wife, or his mother's, the mother of his kids, and he ends up hanging up, and she says that, maybe you should go home and stop playing detective here. Like, you should just, it's not fair. I mean, I guess it's not fair to her, his wife, but this is your kid, and I agree with him. Like, he says, like, I can't, and walks out and leaves. Same with me. Like, if it was my kid, it doesn't matter who I was, like, it's my kid comes first, always. And like, I like how well they show that in here, and it makes sense because a lot of Christians are taught the same thing, and that whole scene, like, is very good too. Like, every scene in this movie is great. This is an absolute classic, this film. And we have this really cool cat and mouse sequence with Dom and the killer. And he, like I said earlier, he was not suspecting, but like saying it's a possibility that it was Tom's daughter Angela that we saw briefly in the movie. So he got a phone call and nobody said anything and just hung up. So now he sees the killer, and she's like purposely getting him to follow her. So he's thinking it's Angela, and it leads up to a great scene. And the killer ends up jumping out at Dom and tries to stab him. And then it's as impractical as it is, I love the shot of the knife falling out of her hand and hitting the armrail, the banister of the stairs below it, and just sticking into it and just, standing straight up. It's shot really, really cool. And then she goes and hides, so Dom cannot find her, and he ends up eventually, after a struggle, he ends up getting freaking thrown off the roof, not the roof, but off this floor. Oh, that's right. It's not a fucking struggle. It's a downright assault. And I don't remember how brutal this movie could be. It's not like in the gore aspect, but like in some ways, not as bloody as I remember, but in just how it's filmed and like how the scenes are shot. Like, it's real brutal stuff, especially when you're thinking like this could be a kid doing this. And she ends up popping out and ends up hitting him right in that fucking head with a brick, and then hits him a few more times, and then like just totally annihilates his face. Man, and then this is where we get to reveal that it's Mrs. Tredini who is the killer, and she lifts the mask up to show Dom, and he's on the floor, and then she gets on top of him, and she just puts the cross necklace in his mouth, and then starts beating him in the face, in the mouth, and stuff. Oh, it's real brutal the way it's shot. Like, this is really surprising me. I mean, I haven't seen it in years, but I've seen it a few times. So this is really kind of an interesting rewatch. This is a lot better. Every time I watch it, I feel like it gets much better. But awesome scene, and then pushes him, like after saying, quoting the Bible or some bullshit, ends up pushing him out like the top. It looks like a barn almost, and he ends up falling to his death. Like, oh man, that sucks. I love the character of Dom. I absolutely love this scene when Miss Tredini or Tredoni, I always forget her goddamn name, Tredini. She ends up going for confession, and it's Father Tom. I mean, he knows it's her, but she's like saying like it's real important, and she says that sometimes she wishes that, oh, I can't bear to say such thoughts, but like it sounds like she was going to say like hint at the fact that like she says that people don't respect the older father, the Monsignor, anymore, and she remembers times where everybody respected him, and she wishes sometimes that God would. And it sounds like she was going to say like strike down like the people who hurt him or like who lost respect for him, like something like that. And he says like before she could finish, says like, I know how you feel, like it sucks when a friend of ours is suffering. Not in those words, it's a lot more confession-y, but and she just saying thank you father, and like she was kind of half-assed trying to like look for a justification for what she's doing, but she's also fucking crazy, so it's like it doesn't matter. She just wants to like kind of like hear someone's take on it, and she like says that's basically like she wraps up confession after that. Like she has no other bigger confessions than that. Nice, great tension and suspense built with the scene when Catherine goes to visit and sees Miss Tredini, and she starts going like she stares at the knife when she's in the kitchen, and then she's cutting the fish in the kitchen like with the knife, and she makes coffee for Catherine, and you start thinking maybe she poisoned her. Like it's very very tense. So good job on that. And she like straight up like threatens her, like when she said that she lost her child on their first communion, and that's when she learned that the children always pay for the sins of their parents, and then like I came to take care of father and not you, and points the knife right at her, and then they hear Father Thomas, and Catherine gets up and leaves. But man, this bitch crazy. And the mortician finds the cross in the mouth of Dom's body, and says like it wasn't in his throat, like forced down it, but like he was biting on it, like there's teeth marks all over it. So she says to like he tells her to look more into that, but I mean I guess she doesn't care about being caught by the end of this movie, or just at that point either, because that's something you don't want to leave like, with the victim. It's something like that, just like something they can identify anything to do with you. But she's so crazy, this woman, so it doesn't really matter. But Miss Tredini is real evil, and since Bob Marley's ghost, who showed up as a guest on the first episode, which has not been released yet, he said he can't be bothered to leave the other side anymore and come do this. So I had my other good friend, the knowledgeable Jamaican prophet, on to tell me about how he thinks the pain must have been in Splinter. So let's have him back on real quickly to say how evil he thinks Miss Tredini really is. All right, Jamaican prophet, how you doing? JT, how you doing, good man? How you do tonight? I'm doing good, man. So, like, in Alice Sweet Alice here, we see, oh, I've seen the movie, mate. It's one hell of a movie. You start seeing all these religious figures and this environment, atmosphere that's built, that is make you feel terrified to chill to the bone, man. Yeah, no, it's a great atmosphere the movie has. I don't even know if I mentioned that, but great atmosphere. It's great atmosphere. All right, hold on. Let me just finish up here. So, how evil on a scale of 1 to 10 do you think Miss Tredoni is? Miss Tredoni, man. She embodies such an evil that goes back so many decades, so many centuries, back to the dawn of time, man. She is the evil incarnate of the demons and devils that we've only dreamt of in our wildest imaginations. She's the most evil that you can imagine when no scale would be able to. Okay, alright, listen. Alright, you did the same thing last episode. You got a little crazy and heated. You doing alright? Yes, sir, I'm feeling better, JT. Sorry about that. All right. So thank you for stopping by again, and I'm sure I'll have you on sometime soon. All right, take care. Super knowledgeable Jamaican prophet. Okay, take care, JT, man. Have a good night, man. Thank you, you too. Let's also give a shout out to the actress who plays Mr. Donny. Great performance too. Like there's just some lingering shots on her that like she really like looks spaced out, like she's looking through a black hole. That like really sells like how insane she is. Like great performance. And then the pervert, he gets his fucking comeuppance for sure when he gets murdered. I love how they show Alice go into the apartment of the perverts first and then put like the jar of bugs and all that shit on his stomach while he's sleeping. And then Mr. Ardini in the killer outfit is knocking on the door with her knife ready, and he's not answering the door. And then he wakes up and he's freaking out at the bugs on him, and he hears the knocking. He gets up and opens the door and says, "Alice, you motherfucker," or whatever at her. And she takes takes the mask off, sees that it's Mr. Dini, and she just stabs him a few times in the chest. Great sequence. And I love the whole ending scene here. The long, like, real atmospheric, to quote the Jamaican prophet, just a whole sequence in the church with everyone getting communion. And then Father Thomas goes over to Miss Tredini. She's wearing the raincoat and says to, to come with him. And he says that she just wants communion. He gave it to that whore and points at Alice's mother. And great dialogue, great acting, great suspense to it. Like, really well done. Like everything else in this movie. She ends up pulling a knife out of her brown paper bag and stabs Father Tom in the neck in front of everybody, and everyone is panicked and in shock. Like it's real disturbing. And we just get the final shot of, and I've heard so many different theories on this, of Alice picking up Miss Tredini's brown bag, and there's a knife in it, another knife, and she ends up picking it up and holding the knife. And then she looks up at the screen and kind of has like this weird half smile, but it's kind of evil on her face, and it freezes on her face, and then we get credits. So I've heard people say that possibly she killed her sister Karen, then everything after that was Miss Tredini, or something similar, that some of the killings were by Alice or some were by Tredini. I like to just take it at face value that she didn't kill anybody. But so I look at it as that she kind of, the issues that she has after seeing this all play out in front of her eyes, and after losing her sister and all of this, she kind of is starting to see some interest in killing. That's how I've always taken it. So, I mean, I'd love to hear how you guys take the ending for this movie, and what your explanation for it is, because that's what I've always told myself and thought about it after watching it, is that she's just kind of now she's interested in murder. And after seeing this, being through all of these terrible events, and combined with how troubled a child that she is, it's starting to seep in, like she's getting pulled over to the dark side, if you will. But all right, guys, that is going to be episode 3 of the Horror After Dark podcast with JT in the Sack on Alice, Sweet Alice in 1976. So I want to thank, as always, Meatwad and knowledgeable Jamaican Prophet for being on. And I'm not even going to mention Mr. T, because fuck that motherfucker. It's 2 times in a row now. So, yeah, wherever you guys are from, I hope you're having a great night or morning, afternoon, whatever it may be by you. And thank you for watching JT's Horror After Dark. Bye-bye.